81-year-old Nana Ruth Freeman looked Steve Harvey dead in the eyes on the Family Feud stage in Atlanta, pointed one arthritis-bent finger at his custom suit, and said in a voice clear enough to register on every microphone in the building, "Baby, I have seen better-dressed men at a funeral in Mississippi in 1987. 300 audience members lost their minds. The floor manager choked on her coffee. Steve Harvey's mouth opened. Then it closed. Then he took one full step backward, the involuntary step of a man who has just been addressed by someone who does not fear him in any capacity, and for 4 seconds, the most famous host in daytime television had absolutely nothing to say. But it was not the mock that ended his career. It was what came after it. What Nana Ruth said next, 11 seconds later, when the laughter was still running through the room and Steve was still searching for his composure, stopped the studio so completely that a sound engineer later said the silence registered on his board the same way it does when the building loses power. What that 81-year-old woman said, in 11 words spoken with the calm authority of someone who has outlived most of what the world has tried to do to her, reduced Steve Harvey to sitting on the stage floor in that expensive suit, unable to stand, unable to speak, and unwilling to pretend that television was more important than what was happening in front of him. And the 60 seconds that followed, the 60 seconds the title promises, were not the end of Steve Harvey's career in the way that phrase is usually meant. They were the end of the version of his career that hadn't yet understood what it was actually for. It was a Friday in September, and the Family Feud studio in Atlanta had that particular late-week energy that builds when a taping runs well from the start. The Freeman family had come from Meridian, Mississippi, 7 hours in a rented van, because Nana Ruth's granddaughter Cassandra had decided the family needed the space, and because Nana Ruth had announced at the outset that she would require a window seat and would not be negotiating on this point. They were 5. Cassandra, 34, a physical therapist. Her husband Jerome, 37, a high school principal. Their daughter Amani, 9, who was not competing but had been brought along because Nana Ruth had said she was not going anywhere without that child. Cassandra's younger brother Deshaun, 30, a chef. And Nana Ruth herself, 81, 4 feet 11 inches. A woman who had been teaching Sunday school at the same church in Meridian for 46 consecutive years and who approached every new room the way she approached every Sunday class, with the full expectation that she was going to be the most interesting person in it. Steve Harvey made his entrance, worked the warm-up, and locked eyes with Nana Ruth within the first 90 seconds. He could tell she was going to be a problem. He meant that as a compliment. He asked her age. She told him. He said she did not look 81. She said she knew. He said what was her secret. She said she never let foolishness stress her, and she had outlasted 3 men who did. The audience adored her immediately. Then he asked what she thought of the studio. She looked around. She looked at Steve. She looked at his suit. And she said the thing about the funeral in Mississippi. Steve stepped back. The audience erupted. Cassandra covered her face. Deshaun turned completely around and faced the back wall, his shoulders shaking. Jerome, the high school principal, put his hands on his knees and stared at the floor the way a man does when he has been married into something and accepted long ago that there is no controlling it. Steve held up one hand. He was trying to speak. He was laughing too hard to speak. He said, "Ma'am, I paid $14,000 for this suit." Nana Ruth said, "I know. That's what worries me." The room detonated again. But nobody in that studio knew what Nana Ruth Freeman was carrying underneath that sharpness. Nobody knew what was behind the jokes and the pointed finger and the eyes that held Steve Harvey's gaze without flinching. Nobody knew what Cassandra had written on the application form. In the section that asked why the family wanted to appear on Family Feud, in one sentence she had rewritten 4 times before she finally sent it in. Because my grandmother has given everything she had to this family for 81 years, and I want her to have one day where she is the star. And that real story hadn't even started yet. Nana Ruth Freeman had been born in Meridian, Mississippi in 1943, the third of 7 children. Her father worked the railroad. Her mother took in laundry. The house was small, and the money was smaller, and the world Nana Ruth grew up in had very specific ideas about what a woman of her background was permitted to want, and Nana Ruth had spent her entire life systematically and quietly ignoring every one of those ideas. She had wanted to be a teacher. The school that would have taken her required tuition her family did not have. She applied for a scholarship through the county. The scholarship committee reviewed her application and awarded the grant to a white student with lower grades. She was told by a clerk at the county office who could not look her in the eye when he said it, that the committee had determined she did not meet the criteria. He did not elaborate on what the criteria were. She understood what the criteria were. She went home. She told her mother. Her mother said nothing for a long time. Then her mother said, "Then you teach what you know, where you are, to whoever will sit still long enough to listen." So she did. She joined the Sunday school program at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church in Meridian when she was 22 years old, assigned to the 8 to 12-year-old class. She had been teaching that class for 59 years. Not because no one else was available, because Nana Ruth Freeman believed, with the force of someone who had been told what she could not have and had found a way to do it anyway, that the children in that classroom deserved someone who would show up every single Sunday with the same commitment, regardless of what the week had cost her. And the weeks had cost her a great deal. Her first husband, William, had died of complications from diabetes when Cassandra's mother was 3 years old. Nana Ruth had raised her daughter alone on a seamstress's income, sewing alterations and formal wear from a back room she converted into a workroom, her sewing machine running after midnight more nights than not, her daughter asleep in the next room. She remarried at 39, a good man named Harold, who worked at the hardware store, and who loved Nana Ruth's daughter like his own, and who made Nana Ruth laugh every single day for 11 years before a stroke took him at 51. She did not remarry after Harold. She said 2 good men in one lifetime was more than most people got, and she was not going to push her luck. She raised Cassandra's mother. She helped raise Cassandra. She helped raise Deshawn. She was present at every graduation, every recital, every first day of school, every hospital waiting room, every kitchen table where someone needed to talk through something at 10 o'clock at night. She had never, in 81 years, asked anyone to take care of her. She had never said she was tired. She had never said the weight was heavy. When Cassandra's mother had asked her 5 years ago whether she ever regretted not having gone to school, Nana Ruth had looked at her and said, "Baby, I have taught over 900 children in that Sunday school. You tell me if I need a diploma for that." But it was what she said to her great-granddaughter Amani, 9 years old, riding in the van on the way to Atlanta, looking out the window at the highway, that had cracked Cassandra open and made her cry in the parking lot of the rest stop outside Birmingham while the rest of the family was inside. Imani had looked at Nana Ruth and said, "Nana, are you sad, Mr. Steve?" Nana Ruth had looked at her and said, "What, baby?" Imani had said, "When you get there, are you going to be sad? Or are you going to be happy?" Nana Ruth had said, after a moment, "I am going to be everything I am, all at once." That's what 81 feels like. Cassandra, in the driver's seat, had heard it. She had not said anything. She had driven another 6 miles. and then pulled into the rest stop and said she needed to use the restroom. And she had gone to the far end of the parking lot and cried. Because she understood, in a way she had not fully understood until that moment in the van, that Nana Ruth was both the sharpest and the most quietly sorrowful person she had ever loved, and that the sorrow was not visible from the outside. Not ever. Not once. Because Nana Ruth had made a decision somewhere in her long life that the people she loved were going to see only the part of her that held things up. She told no one she had cried in the parking lot. She went back to the van and said she'd gotten turned around looking for the restroom, and everyone believed her because Cassandra was known for getting turned around. Back on the Family Feud stage, the laughter from the suit comment was still rolling through the audience when Steve Harvey, recovered enough to function, just barely, moved on to the first question of the round. The game was quick and funny, and the Freeman family was good at it. Nana Ruth buzzing in twice with answers that were both correct and delivered with the precision of a woman who does not guess, she calculates. The audience was with them completely. And then Steve made a mistake. Not a real mistake. A kindly intended mistake, the kind that television hosts make when they are genuinely charmed by a contestant and want to honor them in front of the room. During a brief pause between questions, Steve turned to Nana Ruth and said, warmly, meaning every word, Nana Ruth, I just want to say, you are the most remarkable woman I have met on this stage in 39 years. And I want to know, in front of all these people, what is the one thing you are most proud of in your life? The room went warm with anticipation. It was the kind of question that invites a sweet answer, a grandchildren answer, a long marriage answer, a lived a good life answer. Nana Ruth looked at Steve Harvey for a long moment. She said, I wanted to be a teacher. They told me no. I taught anyway. 912 children in 59 years, every Sunday, without a single diploma. The room held its breath. And then she said, very quietly, almost to herself more than to the room, I just never got to tell them what I taught them. 11 words. Steve Harvey's smile disappeared. He took off his glasses. He rubbed his eyes once with the back of his hand. He walked 2 steps and stopped. His shoulders moved. He was crying. The studio fell completely silent. Not the usual game show pause. A different kind of silence entirely. 300 people stopped breathing at the same moment. The laughter of 60 seconds ago was gone as completely as if someone had turned off a switch. Hardened television professionals were looking at the floor. The floor manager, who had worked that stage for 12 years, later said she had never felt a room change that fast, and that completely in her entire career. Steve did not speak for 9 seconds. Then he turned to his producer in the wings and said, in a voice that was very low and very certain, Stop everything. We are stopping this game. The producer took a step forward. Steve held up one hand without looking at her. She stopped. He walked to the edge of the stage and sat down. Not at the podium. On the stage itself. Knees hanging off the edge, expensive suit in television format and network schedule completely irrelevant. He sat down the way a person sits when they have just heard something that will not allow them to remain standing. This has never happened in the 42-year history of this show, he said to the room. And I am not going to stand up at a podium and be a television host right now. I am not capable of it. He looked at Nana Ruth. I need you to know something, he said. What you just described, wanting something, being told no for reasons that had nothing to do with your ability, and then going and doing it anyway, for 59 years, for 912 children, without a single person on the outside ever fully seeing what it cost. I know that. I know that in a way I have not said out loud on this stage before. He stopped. I was living in my car in 1985. a 1976 Ford Tempo, eating out of trash cans behind restaurants, showering in gas station bathrooms. I wanted something. I wanted to be a comedian, to be somebody, to build something from nothing, and the world told me in every way it knew how that I was not the kind of person that happened for. And I kept going. Not because I was strong, because I was too stubborn to stop, and because somewhere in me I believed that God had not brought me this far to leave me in that parking lot. He looked at his hands, and I made it. And people call that a success story, and it is. But what nobody talks about is the 912 people who did the same thing I did, who kept going, who showed up, who built something real and lasting and important, and the world never put a camera on them, never put them on a stage, never said, in front of 300 people and every network feed in the country, that what they did mattered. He looked back up at Nana Ruth. You matter. What you built matters. 912 children went out into the world carrying something you put there, every Sunday, for 59 years. And today I want you to know that I see it. This room sees it, and I am going to make sure the world sees it. The audience was on its feet before he finished the sentence. He held up one hand. I'm not done, he said. He reached into his jacket and took out his phone. No producer sign off. No network approval. He said clearly, to the cameras and the room, no network approval. This is me. Steve Harvey. What I'm about to do is off the record from the format, and completely on the record from who I am. He called his foundation's program director on speaker and announced, in front of everyone, the immediate establishment of the Ruth Freeman Teaching Legacy Award, a named annual grant of $50,000 per year, given to an unrecognized community educator who has dedicated their life to teaching outside the formal system. Sunday school teachers, community tutors, neighborhood mentors, anyone who built a classroom from nothing in a place the official world forgot to look. He said the award would carry Nana Ruth's name for as long as the foundation operated. He said its motto would be taken directly from her words, I taught anyway. But Steve wasn't done. He stood up from the edge of the stage. He looked at Cassandra. Your grandmother has been the teacher, he said. Now I want to do something for the student. He told Cassandra that her daughter Imani, 9 years old, watching from the audience, would receive a full academic scholarship to any university in the United States, funded through Steve Harvey's foundation, waiting for her the day she graduated high school. He said it was the scholarship that had never reached the right person in 1961 in Meridian, Mississippi, arriving 63 years late, but arriving. The room held its breath. Then it broke. 300 people on their feet. The sound enormous and real, and not the game show sound. The sound of people who have just witnessed something that does not have a category. What came next shocked even his own producers. Steve turned to the competing family, the Morales family from Atlanta, who had been standing at their podium for 14 minutes watching everything unfold. Their grandmother, Esperanza, 77, with both hands pressed flat over her heart. Steve looked at Esperanza. He said, Ma'am, how long have you been going to your church? Esperanza said, 44 years. Steve said, Do you know what this woman did for 59? Esperanza looked at Nana Ruth. She nodded slowly. Steve said, Both families win today. He announced both families would receive the full game prize, the Morales family's winnings covered personally by Steve, so that neither family left with less than they came for. Esperanza Morales walked across the stage. She stopped in front of Nana Ruth. She took both of Nana Ruth's hands in hers, this tiny woman from Meridian and this tiny woman from Atlanta, 81 and 77, neither of them blinking. And Esperanza said in a voice barely above a whisper but caught clearly by the boom microphone above, "I see you, sister." Nana Ruth said nothing. She squeezed Esperanza's hands once. That was enough. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, it was seen by 223 million people in the first 72 hours, making it the most watched Family Feud episode in the digital era. Every clip circulated, but the clip that replicated fastest across every platform was not the suit comment. It was the 11 words, "I just never got to tell them what I taught them." The hashtag #ITaughtAnyway was used 89 million times in the first month. Educators, Sunday school teachers, community mentors, and tutors from 41 countries posted videos describing their own versions of Nana Ruth's 59 years. The uncredentialed classrooms, the unrecognized decades, the 900 children whose names they still remembered, and who the world had never thought to honor them for. 3 months after the taping, the Ruth Freeman Teaching Legacy Award received over 14,000 nominations in its first open application cycle. Submissions from every state in the country and 22 additional nations. Steve Harvey's foundation hired a dedicated review committee. The first award was presented at a ceremony in Atlanta that Nana Ruth attended in a blue dress she had sewn herself, which she noted was considerably better constructed than Steve Harvey's suit. Steve Harvey was in the front row. He stood when she walked in. A year after the taping, Imani Freeman, now 10, wrote a school essay about the person she most admired. She did not write about a celebrity or a president or a historical figure. She wrote about her great-grandmother, the teacher who never had a classroom, who never had a diploma, who showed up every Sunday for 59 years because she had decided that the children in that room deserved someone consistent, and consistency was something she knew how to give. The essay won the school's writing prize. Imani read it aloud at the school assembly. Nana Ruth was in the second row. Cassandra was beside her. They had both promised they would not cry. Neither of them kept that promise. 5 years later, the Ruth Freeman Teaching Legacy Award has honored 63 educators across 37 states and 14 countries, distributing over $3 million to community teachers who had spent their careers invisible to every metric that usually measures impact. The foundation receives an average of 22,000 nominations per year. Its website carries one sentence at the top of the homepage. In large type, the first thing every visitor reads, "I taught anyway." Nana Ruth Freeman still teaches Sunday school at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church in Meridian, Mississippi. She is 86 now, the 8 to 12-year-old class, every Sunday. 64 consecutive years. She still does not have a diploma. She does not appear to require one. Steve Harvey called her on her 85th birthday. He asked how she was. She said she was fine, but that she had seen him on television the week before and his suit had not improved. He laughed for a long time. When he stopped laughing, he said, "Nana Ruth, you changed my career." She said, "Baby, I just told the truth. You did the rest." He said he was going to use that. She said he had her permission. The closing image that every journalist, every commentator, every viewer who wrote about that episode kept returning to was not the mock. It was not the suit comment, or the pointed finger, or Steve's involuntary backward step. It was the moment after everything. After the phone call, after the scholarships, after both families had received their prizes and the cameras had begun to wind down, when Imani, 9 years old, walked from the audience onto the stage and stood beside her great-grandmother and took her hand. And Nana Ruth looked down at her and said something that the directional microphone caught, but that was so quiet it almost didn't make it onto the audio track. She said, "You see, We came. 3 words. Present tense. Not we made it. Not we won. We came. The verb of showing up. The verb Nana Ruth Freeman had been conjugating every Sunday for 59 years in a classroom nobody clapped for, building something the world would spend another 6 decades learning to recognize. The kind of greatness that does not announce itself. The kind that just keeps showing up, Sunday after Sunday, in a room where the children are waiting, because someone has to be the person who comes. Nana Ruth Freeman decided, at 22 years old, that she was going to be that person. And she was right. For 64 years, she was right. And on a Friday afternoon in September, in a studio in Atlanta, in front of 300 people and 223 million more, the world finally showed up for her. If this story moved you, if it made you think of the teachers in your life who showed up without a stage, without a title, without anyone keeping count, subscribe to this channel and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who has been building something quietly, in a room no one is watching, for longer than anyone knows. Have you ever had a teacher who changed your life without knowing it? Tell us in the comments. And ring that notification bell for more moments that prove that the most important work is almost always the work that goes unrecognized the longest.